You guys. Welcome to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. Happy Thursday. You guys, I am sorry about that little snafu. This is take two. So welcome to the show. Not only did I have a shift in my content, I normally go live on Wednesdays, but I had to take my girls to, they were in a play last night and I had to reschedule some things. And so I was unable to go live like I was supposed to. And then tonight I'm being a little ambitious because I absolutely want to cover this bombshell of a reveal as if it wasn't news. I mean, this is not news to any of us. But I'm covering two topics tonight. We are going to absolutely discuss Joe Biden and Jake Tapper's book and all the lies and the deception that our country was gaslit into believing. But in the second half of the show, I'm going to be joined by a guest. We are going to be reacting to an interview of Dr. Jamal Bryant on a podcast that I had never heard of before. And to be fair, y'all know I always come with smoke for Jamal. I really do. And it's not that I'm not going to come with smoke for Jamal tonight in this interview, but this one was a little different. And I'm going to be joined by a guest, Kevin Briggins from the Off Code podcast. Will be joining us in probably 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. If I don't hurry up and finish, he'll be popping in any minute. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and deal with what's on the thumbnail first. I first want to welcome you to the live stream. Like I said, I am incredibly sorry about how the live stream just ended. But what happens is when I do my streams, at the end of the show, I have it set to play my intro, and then I have it automatically set to end the stream so I can go and go live my life. And I always forget to change that one little setting. And so here we are again. But anyway, without further ado, like this video, welcome to the live stream. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, or X, we are glad to have you in the house. Now, since this content in this platform, this is kind of a place where y'all know truth doesn't flinch. The foolishness gets dragged like a hood rat from the projects. We're going to have to talk about this political scandal, and I want to unpack it because the media is calling it a bombshell. They're calling it a political bombshell, and it has the media squirming, and it has the Democrat machine looking like the imbeciles that I have come to know them to be. And so, no, I'm not going to be nice with this one. Yes, I just called them imbeciles. You should not be surprised. So you have to label the behavior that we've been seeing. And so here is a little bit of backstory. As you guys know, Jake Tapper, who is Mr. CNN himself, you may not know, but he has co-authored a book called Original Sin. And he co-authored this book with Alex Thompson. So it's a 2-for-1 special. You get Jake Tapper and then you get his co-author Alex Thompson. Now, you guys, I could have written this book. And I'd be sitting on a nice little fat wad of cash right now. And in fact, I'm arguing that Jake owes me some money. Jake owes me some money because I've been telling y'all for at least, I started my platform in 2022, but before I even started doing YouTube regularly, when I was over on Facebook with my little hamburger natural hairstyle, I was telling y'all that Joe Biden was not okay since as early as 2019. I remember saying it. I remember telling people he was not well, and conservatives and other individuals and American patriots like me, we've been saying it. But as the saying goes, we're conspiracy theorists. You know, we just making it up as we go because we ain't got nothing else better to do. So Jakey boy drops this book. And y'all, to be fair, I have not bought the book. I've been inclined to buy it. But before I buy it, I wanted to see at least, okay, what is the interwebs saying about this book? So what's in the book? Well, we're not shocked what's in the book. Him and his co-author, they are finally telling the truth about what many of us already knew. Joe Biden was in no condition to run this country, and everybody covered it up. Now, I have shared with you guys, maybe you remember, but my mother has dementia, okay? Dementia is not a game. I've been living with it for the past 24 months, and today I might be my mama's sister. Tomorrow, I could be her cousin. My mama, she's made up other siblings. It's difficult for her to place names with faces. She really doesn't remember the basics. She just doesn't remember. We have to constantly redirect her, because with dementia, they have this thing called fixation, right? Where they will fixate and say, for example, it's ice cream, right? And you bring ice cream in, and under normal circumstances, your loved one who had impulse control and would know, okay, I've had enough, or it's not time for ice cream because it's breakfast. They see something and they fixate on it, and they're unable to kind of pull away, and you kind of have to always redirect. I noticed a lot of redirection from people close to Joe Biden very early on. He'd be at public events, and Joe would be walking one way because he got his mind fixed on where he want to go, and they're lovingly trying to pull him along, be like, no, Joe, we're going over here. Joe was forgetting people's names. Fixation is a thing. The inability to make decisions without much direction is a thing. It's to the point now, my mother will ask me if it's okay if she eats a piece of chicken, or she's so unsure of herself. A woman who is a control freak by nature, who has lived independently, made her own decisions, could nobody tell her nothing. Now you literally have to redirect every single one of her actions, because the part of the brain that controlled decision making and the ability to be decisive, it is now diminished. So yes, I'm pissed. As I report on what happened with our president, listen, Joe Biden is a leftist liberal. I didn't agree with any of his politics, but I am pissed because Joe is older than my mama, and my mom cannot even manage her own life, let alone some sort of executive position. And so I know that there is no way that Joe was running the country, and I don't understand why there has not been some formal investigation to the high treasonous behavior of the entire former administration. This country was put at risk because people chose power and lies over national security, public safety, love of country, and just the truth. I did not like his politics. But as an image bearer, it is incredibly cruel to try to push a dementia patient past their limits. They have limits. They're unable to make decisions for themselves. They need people who love them and who trust them to do everything for them. Yes, they can engage in nominal discourse and conversation. You can sit down with my mama and have a whole conversation with her. And you may not realize until about 5 or 6 minutes in that the facts of what she may have just reported didn't make any sense. Those details didn't go with that. That's not that person's name. But you kind of just go along with it. So I don't buy that nobody knew. Now, so before I get emotionally all out of sorts, let's just go ahead. I want to examine a few clips. So just give me one quick section. Did I say section? I did say section. Give me one quick second. Let's get situated here. And I want to play just a few clips to give you guys some context as to the what people are saying and how they're still doubling down on dumb. They're still doubling down on dumb and lying.
Stuff, but he really honestly doesn't know those dates. That non-functioning Biden reared his head more and more and more. Now, one thing in your specific case, Joe, our reporting indicates that Joe Biden, who, as you know, is a frequent viewer of the show, saw when David Ignatius wrote that column in, I think, August 2023, saying that Joe Biden should not run for re-election because of what he had been hearing.
Right.
And he came on this show, and you guys had a robust conversation about this. You largely agreed that you'd been hearing things about this, but that there was really no alternative, that Kamala Harris was not up to the job. That's what Democrats were telling you behind the scenes. Joe Biden saw that. Joe Biden said to staffers that he wanted to convince you that you were wrong. And he focused on you like you were a constituency, like you were farmers in Iowa, like you were the Kiwanis Club in New Hampshire. And he made sure that you thought differently. He made sure that you thought differently. I think he did this with a couple people. I think he did it with Meacham. He might have done it with Evan Osnos. He knew that there were people that had to be convinced that he was fine. And he tried to prove that to you.
I'd also say just an...
Listen, let me explain something to you. I don't believe Joe Scarborough. This man has been on a media tour of just lying through his pencil lips. This man is the one who told us to F ourselves if we didn't believe and we're not convinced that Joe Biden was just as sharp as he's ever been. This man looked us in the eyes on camera over and over and over again and told us that there was nothing wrong with Joe and that Joe was strong. And what was the word that he used? He was a fighter. And I'm like, yes, most dementia patients are. They're very stubborn. They fight you. When you try to restrain and say, no, you can't do this, or we're not doing this right now, they get very upset. The impulse control is gone. He was not himself. But Joe Scarborough and so many other of the mainstream news, lame stream news media, and these operatives for the Democrat Party lied to you, the American people. And here's what I don't understand. I don't understand why there has been no accountability. Why are people still watching them? Why would we believe anything that comes out of these people's mouths? My question is, was there a financial incentive to lie? Was it a financial incentive to lie? What was the thing that caused these people to suppress observable reality and tell us it's like the emperor had on no clothes? Everybody see that he's butt booty naked, and it's like, that's some fine garments you wearing right there, Prince. Yes. Look at that dapper outfit you're donning, and he naked. He was naked. That's what we were living through for the past few years. I've got some more clips that I want to show you. This one is, let me see. Here we go. This one's good.
Looking back at that, do you say, well, it was misleading to say Best Biden ever without caveating it and say, except on the days when he's not the best Biden ever?
Well, but I never saw those days personally.
Well, you did, because you saw him address a dead congresswoman, and you saw him in South Carolina.
A dead congresswoman, yeah.
Yeah, well, more than that. I mean, I can show you. I can show you the RNC clip reels. There were plenty of days in public when he was not the best Biden ever, and of course, shortly after,
he stumbled and bumbled around. Mark, I mean, yeah, he certainly did. Donald Trump did. Other politicians did. It's actually the same case as a lot of times when I've gone in and talked to Donald Trump.
That's a lie. He is lying. Let me tell you something. You know how I know he's lying? I'm going to tell you how I know he's lying. This man is lying because last spring, I was invited. Donald Trump was the keynote speaker at the Black Conservative Federation event. And it was in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was invited, and it was me, it was my husband, and all 4 of my kids. And we were excited to be in the room because Byron Donalds was there, and what's his name? Ben Carson was there. And listen, I'm drawing a blank of how many other people were there. When Donald Trump finally got up to speak, we had eaten. It was a beautiful black tie event. Donald Trump stood up there and talked for almost 2 hours. No teleprompter. And I say almost 2 hours because after an hour and a half, your girl had to go. I love Don, but I was like, bro, first of all, I can't stand as long as you stood. Don't your feet hurt? 2, this man was cracking so many jokes, sharp as a tack, articulating his plans for if he were to win the White House, what his agenda was going to be. You have not sat down and talked to Donald Trump and walked away thinking that that man was senile. This man is lying. Our whole family was tapping out. One of my twins, she wasn't feeling good. We don't know what was wrong with her. I don't think she didn't have COVID, but she just was like, Mommy, I don't feel good. And she just wasn't her 100% self. She's sitting at the table and baby's head just hit the table. This is how long Donald Trump was talking. She was so excited. She wanted to hear. All my kids were excited to see Trump. And we had like 3 bathroom breaks, came back. He was still going. He was still going. Finally, I was like, we're going to have to head back to the Airbnb. I was like, I can't do no more. I wanted to wait to the end, possibly, say, I couldn't hug a baby. I couldn't do nothing. I was so tired. It was easily close to like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And he was still going. Like he had a battery in his back or something. I was like, I don't know what they're feeding him, but for this man to imply that, there've been situations where I've talked to Donald Trump and had the same thing. No, don't. My issue, I would respect Joe Scarborough if he said, you know what? I got so caught up in wanting my candidate to win that I allowed myself to ignore the obvious because I just wanted us to win. Like, I could respect that. I get it. You sinful, you're wicked, you're a sinner, that's your natural proclivity. But for you to double down and to keep lying like this, and then the butt Trumps, to keep bringing up Trump's mental acuity and fitness as if we don't know, those two are not even nowhere near on the same playing field. Nobody believes you. So I wanted to play that clip. He's lying.
And I've heard the media narrative around Donald Trump, and certainly I've been very critical of Donald Trump. And when I leave, I have a better understanding, just like Jeffrey Goldberg did a couple of weeks ago, I have a better understanding of where Donald Trump is mentally. If Donald Trump is losing it, like, people have said through the years or not. And so again, am I going to look at a clip that's gone viral and pay more attention to that than 2.5, 3 hours I had with a guy one-on-one going around the world? No, I'm just not going to. Are some of the clips bad? Yeah, they certainly are bad. I can understand why people would see that without the context.
I understand how people would see that without the context. What's the context, Joe? Either the man's in his right mind or he's not. There is no context where I talk about dead people affectionately as if they're in the land of the living. In what context is that going to lead anybody to believe that April's just fine? There's nothing wrong with April. She's sharp as a tack. The gaslighting is not going to end. I wish I had more time to go through more clips, but I have a guest that's going to be joining us soon. And in the observance of time, I want to make sure that I leave time to address everything else that I want to say about this. However, there are several key bombshells that are in Jake's book, right? So let me get that down. Several key bombshells. The first thing is we have to break this down in such a way that we identify the fact that Biden's decline was not sudden. He didn't just wake up one day and get like this. What it was hidden. I told y'all, I noticed it back in 2019. When the gate starts to shift, this is different than, oh, Joe's just getting old. It's like, no, there's a disconnect. There are misfiring. There's some things happening on with his brain that's causing these things to happen. I'm not a medical professional, and I don't need to be to see that there was something going on with our president. Tapper reveals in his book that there were Biden aides, and his family saw the signs. They saw the forgetfulness, his disorientation, slow response times. Yet instead of them stepping in and speaking out, I saw someone in the live chat ask, what are we going to do and deal with the anger toward Jill? I have a Facebook post. Oh my goodness, this Facebook post aged well. I told my followers, I said, Jill don't love him. She don't love that man. If she loved him, she'd be protecting him. But instead of stepping in and speaking out and saying, my husband's not doing okay, y'all need to figure out what y'all gonna do, but I have to protect him. Instead, they just built a protective bubble around him and lied and told America that everything was fine. And that wasn't true. There's also an aspect in this book where Lara Trump, I didn't pull the clip, she was right. Lara Trump was right. Jake Tapper admitted to it, and in this wild twist, he tells Lara Trump, you know, she was right to raise concerns during the campaign. I'm like, your apology, because it's been said that he's apologized to her. But my thing is, we didn't get that apology in 2020. And that's when the truth mattered. On the campaign trail is when that truth mattered. And instead of him telling the truth came after everybody had to see the facepalm bomb of Biden on stage debating I was about to say debating Barack Obama, debating Donald Trump, and it was an abject fail. It was a disaster. Who else knew? Obama knew. Obama knew. His circle knew. They said nothing. According to the book, even members of Obama's former team had concerns about Biden's cognitive capacity. But you know, as Democrats, listen, if we don't say nothing about these darn nasty, freak, nasty Democrats, they are loyal. They are loyal to their party over the truth. And the truth, they will keep the truth quiet if it means we're going to stick together. Now, the original sin, they're calling the book Original Sin. They're trying to sell to us the idea that America's president wasn't fit. And I'm like, we knew that. They put Americans at risk. Do you guys know the type of national security problems that we were left vulnerable to, all because they didn't want to tell us the truth? A lot. And so, as you know, I'm going to wrap this up in a little bit, but as you know, when we examine this situation and we analyze how Jake Tapper and his co-author, how they called this deception a sin, I'm like, you're right. But don't get it twisted. It wasn't a passive mistake. It was an intentional cover-up. The American people paid the price. The whole world was laughing at us. And now Democrats, they just want you to forget and move on. I'm like, not so fast. We're not going to let that happen. But here's what I would like to do. The media and the Democrat Party, yes, they are absolutely complicit. I saw Simone Sanders out here with her bald-headed self lying, talking about, you know, it was a mess. We need to call this what it is. None of this was journalism. All of these people deserve to be fired. They have no discernment if they can still. They have no credibility, no integrity, and no discernment if they can still get on the air and still lie and say, yeah, I just didn't see that. I mean, I know what the tapes say and the footage says, but I didn't see that, Joe. They're lying. This was not journalism. It was narrative management. The mainstream media, they've been doing it for years, and so many people have been deceived by their lies. The whole country was falling apart right before our eyes. Black people were deceived because they're so loyal to the Democrat Party. They weren't even questioning, is it a possibility that these people lying to us? They had black pastors in on it, saying, you know, he just got a stutter. You know, he had a bad night. No, he was cognitively impaired. The media protected a sock puppet. So instead of investigative journalism, we got fluff pieces. Joe was thrown a bunch of softball questions. He struggled to answer those questions because everybody knew it was beyond his scope of what he could do. And that is incredibly cruel. His legacy is tarnished. He don't know he's embarrassed, but I'm embarrassed for him. And so instead of those hard questions, we got ice cream runs. We got to see him in aviator sunglasses. And that was to hide that dementia gaze and that blank look in their eyes. I know that look. And all of this was done because they hated Donald Trump more than they loved the truth, more than they loved this country. The media went to war against America. And I'm convinced, I knew the media was evil, but now the media and the Democrat Party have been up to some of the most evil, sinister, wicked agenda initiatives that modern American history has ever seen. And so the plan was, we're going to install Joe. We'll shield him from scrutiny. Our little group will run the country. And the problem is, we didn't elect a committee to run the country. We elected a president. So if you want to see an oligarchy, we just lived through one. There's no democracy in the Democrat Party. They selected their leader. They told you who your next leader who she was gonna be. Because when he couldn't lead, the consequences were catastrophic, but they figured we'll just put Kamala in there. Another empty suit in his place. The nerve of these people. It's more than a cover-up, national betrayal. We shouldn't let this go because they didn't just lie to us. They gaslit an entire nation. They labeled anyone who dared question Biden's sharpness as a conspiracy theorist. Or the other term was, you're an ableist. All the while, they were panicking behind closed doors. So yes, there is aftermath. The question is, will there be any accountability? Probably not. Probably not. Because obviously he can't run again. I mean, well, in Joe's mind, he really thought he could beat Donald Trump. He believed that. My mother doesn't believe she has dementia. They believe these things. But now that he is out, suddenly the media is ready to talk. Well, it's too late. Public trust is already shattered, and we don't believe nothing that comes out of any of your mouths. We don't. The very people who helped Biden win are scrambling to rewrite history. And that's what Jake Tapper's little tell-all book, It's a Little Too Late. And I don't think him writing this book had anything to do with telling the truth, because the job of a journalist is to report on the facts, even facts that you don't like. Don't come running down with your little journalist confessions after you helped. It's like you go to a car dealership. He sold us a lemon with a bad transmission in it and knew as soon as we drove that car off the lot that we weren't going nowhere. You don't get points, Jake, for finally speaking up. The damage is already done. So independent media like this matters. Shows like mine matter. The mainstream media, they're more interested in protecting their narrative than protecting the nation. You don't have to like or agree with everything I say, but at least you're free to formulate your own opinions, right? Based on what is reported, just formulate your own opinions. I'm not feeding you propaganda. And that could be perhaps why no one watches the news. So 2 scriptures and then we're going to go. We got to have journalism, accountability, and we should start demanding more transparency. But Proverbs 12:22 says, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. All of us are sinful and fallen and wicked, and we lie, okay? Humans lie. However, nothing that is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything in secret. Wait a minute, no. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. May this help all of us remember that the truth always comes out eventually. And as believers, we're just called to tell the truth, even when it's hard, not just when it's trending. So I don't know if you guys want to buy the book, Original Sin. I didn't link it. It probably is an interesting read, but it's not telling us anything that we didn't already know. And whether it is politics or in the pulpit, lying lips don't get a pass. Not from God, not from me, and certainly not from any of you guys out there, all of my Unshakable listeners. I really do love you guys. And I am curious to know what you guys think. Like, tell me in the comments if you're shocked, dismayed, your trust is shattered. I don't know how you had any trust still left. But share this little episode with a friend who still trusts CNN. Drop me a comment. When did you first notice that there was something significantly wrong with Joe Biden? Don't forget to like this video. We're going to go ahead and transition because I have a guest. We're going to talk about something super interesting. And my friend, where did he go? Did he leave? He sure did. I told him I was coming. Let me see. He'll come back. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. Kevin was supposed to be here. Let me see. I saw him come in and he didn't sit in the green room. Let me see if I can chat him real quick. There he goes. I heard it. Where'd he go? There he goes. Hey, Kevin. All right, you guys. So this next segment, I am bringing on a friend who is, I needed Kevin's help on this one because Kevin can temper my aggression. He can temper the aggression that I had with some of the things that we're about to review. Give me one quick second, y'all. Let me add Kevin to the stream. Hey, friend.
Hey, sister, how you doing?
I am doing well. You guys say hello to Kevin Briggins. Kevin, go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience for those who may not know you.
Yeah, I am Kevin Briggins from the Off Code Podcast, and the Off Code Podcast is a product of the Center for Biblical Unity. And what we do is on Off Code, we discuss issues of the Black community from a biblical worldview.
I absolutely love it. So I'm trying to remember, Kevin, what did we decide? We're about to cover an interview of Dr. Jamal Bryant on a podcast. You know what? I did not pull up the name of the podcast. I'm going to link it below. I'm going to try to be nice and be fair. I think we probably decided that we wanted to cover this to cover a lot of the erroneous information that was presented.
Yes.
And to exhort believers to be a little bit more discerning. Kevin, would you like to go ahead and just kind of introduce this podcast and why you thought it would be good for us to sit down and talk about it, to do like a autopsy or a review?
Yeah. Like you, I also forgot the name of it. But he sat down for an interview, and you know, because someone sent it to both of us, and that's how we both watched. I've never watched his podcast before,
right?
And so I watched it, and it was infuriating to hear what was being said without it being challenged. And right. It's like you want to challenge it, but you're not on there live, you know.
So it's nothing you can do.
Like, yeah, it's nothing you can do, and it's like, how is he just letting this slide without challenging these assumptions that he's making in these statements? Right. And so that's what we started talking about. And you was like, hey, you want to come on and talk about this? I was like, yo, let's do it. You know?
I think it is. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, the young man his last name is Pinto. Is it Pinto?
I'm finna find it. I'm finna pull it up.
Yeah, I saved it somewhere. Let me see. Y'all, please go ahead and like this video. I'm gonna get queued up what we're about to watch. Let me see. Because I watched it today extensively. Oh, I found it. It is the Gabrielle Pinto podcast. That is it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I watch the podcast, a lot of times when I listen to podcasters give interviews, and like I said, I'm going to be fair, you really do want to be nice and gracious to your guests. You do. But what I noticed in this interview is that this particular podcaster, God bless him, you know, maybe one day we'll get to sit down and I might be able to press him a little bit regarding why he allowed, when I say Jamal took control of this interview and completely shifted the narrative, you guys out there in the listening audience, if you want to see a wolf at work, like clench them fangs down and hold tight, and you don't really realize that you caught. That's what this interview was. So what I did, Kevin, I picked several clips. I don't know how many we're gonna get through, but let me go ahead and split this screen up. And we are going to, we'll play the first clip and then we'll engage with it. I don't know how long this is, to be honest with you. I really don't. I don't know if this is the beginning of the interview. I should have been, listen, the date escaped me, okay? It just did. That looks good. Okay, let's see. Is that full screen? Yeah, that's good enough. Yeah. All right, let's go.
And you once said Black people voting for Trump are having an identity crisis. Yes. I think it was on the Breakfast Club interview that I just was watching. They referred to it. And transparently, I voted for Trump.
Yes.
Does that mean I'm having an identity crisis?
Are
transparently?
you Black?
That's a hard question. I'm mixed.
I said
and that's even something I want to dive into.
Mixed between what and what?
Yeah, black. So my dad's Trinidadian, and then my mom's Irish.
Yes.
So I've kind of even been confused about how to answer that question.
Yes.
I don't mind either way.
Yes.
But sometimes I know when you're mixed, they like to say that you're.
I call it a identity crisis because I think it's voting against self-interest.
Kevin, did I stop it too soon?
Oh no.
Okay. Set up for the audience. First, let me give you guys some backstory. So the podcaster here, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he used to attend First Baptist Church of Atlanta, which was pastored by Charles Stanley, a faithful pastor who pastored a very large church here in Atlanta. It was just nominal evangelical. Anybody who went to First Baptist, I would say theologically, you were safe. You weren't going to be exposed to too much heresy. You would have been good there. Decent church. Now, I believe this gentleman goes to 2819. Not trying to have shade for Pastor Mitchell here. But what I need my audience to see is that when we put a lot of emphasis on the experiential, and we are not strong in doctrine and just nominal Christian apologetics, what you're about to see happen to this young man can very much happen to you too. So Kevin, you heard Jamal the interviewer set up the question and said, quote, Jamal, you've said that black people who vote for or voted for Donald Trump are suffering from an identity crisis. Yeah. And Jamal's answer was, yes, because you're voting against your interests. Can you just engage with that before I pop in?
Yeah. First of all, identity crisis. What other ethnic group has an identity crisis if it doesn't vote a particular way? None. Right. And so this idea that if you're black, it's the whole thing. We all grow up. If you're black, you're supposed to vote Democrat. And if you don't, then you don't know you're black. And it just goes back to the whole point that this isn't about skin color. When they say black, they're talking politically black, right? Are you down for the struggle, right? And if you're not down for the struggle, then you don't know who you are. You've bought into whiteness and all of this type of stuff. And so that's what he's talking about, because Jamal Bryant, his whole theology and his whole politics is based on liberation of black people, right? And so if you're not voting in line with the liberation of black people, whatever that means, and I'm going to tell you right now, whatever that means is whatever the Democrat Party tells him it means, right? Because he's going to go along with all their policies. He's going to go along with the whole platform, right? If you're not voting for that, then you don't know who you are. You don't know who you're black and all this type of stuff. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when I heard Jamal say that, the first thing I did was I had to pause it. And I get it in real time when you're having a dialogue like this. Sometimes your thoughts escape you. But I'm like, if you're telling me if I voted for Trump, I have an identity crisis. A lot of people didn't vote for Trump as a political figure. They looked at the policies that he was promoting, and they contrasted that against the policies that Kamala was promoting. And what I'd love to ask Pastor Jamal Bryant is, are you saying that my interests are that of the LGBTQ community? Right? Like, what fellowship or interest would I have in pushing that agenda that Kamala Harris was pushing, which is, let's use taxpayer dollars to transition not just children, but members of our military, which I believe weaken our military. You're military, and you probably could speak on that. Other policies, when he's talking about our interests, I'm like, school choice is in the better interest of Black people, yet the Democrat Party is overwhelmingly against school choice, and they want your children to stay in a failing school. How is me voting for a party that offered me school choice, offered me access to my own money to educate my children the way I see fit? How is that me voting against my interests? Can you try to dissect what you think Jamal means when he say interest. Like, which interest is he talking about? Because all I saw on the Democratic left side was illegal interest, gay interest, trans interest, high taxes, no real economic plan interest, an open border, like illegal interest. Did I say that already? I did. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, Jamal is a socialist. And one thing we know, we don't have to go down this road, but since the 1960s, black people, we could say we traded the big G in God for the little g government, right? And so Jamal believes in everything being about government doing for you. Yeah. And so if you don't believe in big government socialist programs, if Trump is talking about cutting something, he's like, that's against your interest, right? He just believes, and he has a faith in government, right? And he believes that when you vote for small government, you're voting against your interest. And he clearly believes that black people need the government, right? To get ahead, to keep up with white people. And so, yeah, if you aren't for big socialist government, then in his mind, you're voting against your own interest. But I'll just go back to the whole identity thing, because I know you're going to agree with this. I don't have an identity crisis because my identity is in Christ, right?
This is what I wanted to hear from a pastor. I couldn't understand how he could say that a black person that's making a political decision is struggling with their identity when, as a Christian, his worldview should echo that. Wait a minute, are you a Christian? Yes. Oh, well, then your identity is hidden in Christ. And if your identity is hidden in Christ and you've been crucified with Christ, why is it, if you claim to submit yourself to the lordship of Jesus, why are you voting and supporting a policy that is the antithesis of everything good that God has said is needed for human flourishing, such as marriage, traditional marriage, a nuclear family, right? Love for other image bearers like the ones in the womb. All of the policies over there, I am struggling to understand which of the leftist policies he believes support our interests. Notice how he makes the statement, but he doesn't qualify it. Should we give him some more time to kind of flesh it out?
I mean, you can give him time. He's not going to help himself, but you can let him flesh it out a little bit more.
All right, let's go.
As a black person, I don't know how a black person who identifies as black or Trinidadian would say, how do I vote for a person who calls all immigrants criminals?
Lies.
Never happened.
You see, the reason why statements like this get a pass in his church, because these people believe everything that comes out of his mouth. Donald Trump never called all immigrants, what did he say? Criminals?
Criminals, yes.
First of all, illegal immigration is a crime. You can't go to any other country without permission and being vetted. Why is it that people believe that America should just have this open revolving door policy where you just get to come in and do whatever you want and get access to rights and privileges that are afforded to citizens? We have a criminal element of illegal immigrants. None of us on the conservative right are against immigration. So this is a straw man. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, so basically, Jamal Bryant runs cover for the Democrat Party. And the Democrat Party allowed tens of millions of illegal immigrants to flood into our country. And he said nothing about it, right? But when people are fed up with it and people are talking and pushing back on it, and there is rampant crime that is coming from a lot of these people who are coming in, just from a common sense perspective, right? The government has a responsibility to secure the nation, to secure the border. And when it's wide open and you have tens of millions of unvetted people coming in, and we know a lot of these South American countries, you've got gangs and human trafficking and drug trafficking, all of those things are taking place. And so there's a lot of crime going on, not even to mention the fentanyl coming in. Right. And so there was so much crime coming in a lot of these cities that we're dealing with. We can get into the women who were murdered, who were what we say,
assaulted,
raped and murdered,
yes.
assaulted and murdered. Yeah. Yes. And those are the things that the president and others were highlighting, was saying that we have to get control of the border because we must be able to vet who's coming in for security reasons of our own citizens, because that is the responsibility of the government, right? But he won't come from an honest, objective position like that to say, okay, what is the role of the government in this? He is just running cover for the policies of the party he's dedicated himself to. Right?
So it sounds like in these first few minutes, we've already caught him in one lie where he has said that Donald Trump calls all illegals rapists. Is that what he said? Or criminals?
Criminals.
Well, technically they are. Regardless whether you come from the south of the border or you're coming from Asia by way of south of the border or through Canada, if you pierce this nation's border, you are a criminal because that's a crime. Now, we can then, once we identify you as a criminal, Donald Trump did not assert that everyone who has crossed this nation's border illegally is a sexual deviant. But there is a lot of sexually deviant crimes taking place, i.e., sex trafficking, and they have murdered and raped Americans. That is actually happening. He won't say Laken Riley, not Laken Riley. Is it Laken? Yes, Laken Riley's name. The other young woman from Texas, the one in Maryland. Laken was right here in his state. Do you think he's going to mention her? No.
Nope.
Let's let him talk some more. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Let's play.
And monsters and rapists. How do I support is
that not true though? Did we assert? Did I lay out a strong claim that is objectively true, that some of them are, but how he lied with a serpent's tongue, a forked tongue, to assert that without distinction he said all, and that all is not
immigrants. True. Yes,
not
true at all.
Okay.
A person who is able to commandeer evangelicals in America and say, hey, I'm agree on two issues: same-sex marriage and abortion. Anything else outside of that in terms of ethics or morality we'll do away with.
Like what?
Yeah. Give an example. Whereas, let's talk. This dude want to talk about ethics and morality, and he's talking about the Democrat Party? The party that took God out of their whole thing, the party that is for that can't define what a woman is, the party that is for gay marriage, the party that is for transitioning. Let me stop. Let me just say, that's using their language.
It is.
The party that is for child sex changes.
Yes.
Right? The
basically
party
gender, genital mutilation of children.
Yes. Yeah. And he wants to talk about ethics and morality? Come on, right? He can't be serious. You want to talk about someone with an identity crisis? He's the one with the identity crisis because he doesn't realize his identity is in Christ. His identity is in his flesh. And anyone who he believes that is going to, let's say, put resources towards people who look like him, he will sell out anything else for that.
But here's the thing. The party that you just made a statement about that would give resources for people to look like him, those resources, let me tell you where New Birth is. New Birth is in Stonecrest, which is basically a little spinoff city of Lithonia, okay? The school is trash, all of them. They all at the bottom. The roads, both exits, Turner Hill and Evans Mill Road, crime-ridden. Now, there's some affluent houses sprinkled around New Birth, but Farrington Road, you won't catch me on Farrington after dark. Absolutely not. Infrastructure-wise, horrible. All you have is gas stations, wing joints, and liquor stores. Okay? There's no economic development happening there. And when he makes this statement, I done lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I was talking about, the money.
About resources.
Right. Yeah. We know for a fact that a lot of these black pastors cape hard for the Democrat Party because if they can get the Democrats' votes, some of that money that comes back to those districts, they're going to put some street money in these pastors' pockets. But they want to make you think that they're bringing resources back for you. But my question is, why is it everywhere they rule, you never see anything improved? It only gets worse. And the constituents become more dependent on the government. You don't see the economic opportunity. You don't see the budding entrepreneurship. You never see that. You never see it.
No. It's just the game they run, right? The politicians are in cahoots with the pastors in these communities. Because let's be real, you're talking about Atlanta. I'm from Birmingham, 2 hours away. I'm 44 years old. My entire life, I've had nothing but black mayors, black city council, black police chief, all these, black school superintendent, all of these things in my city that I grew up in. And yet they will still, to this day, put the conditions of the people or the conditions of the city on someone else.
Yep.
Right. And there's no accountability. And the pastors basically parrot the message that the politicians want them to parrot. Right. And they just continuously lie to the people. The pastors are getting their piece on the side. The politicians are getting a chance to stay in power. And they're just using the people that are in their pews. They're not shepherding these people. He's not a shepherd. He's a wolf. And it's just clear that this is the game they run. And it's just really sad. And then when you try to speak out about it, then, oh, you're the Uncle Tom, you're the coon. They diminish anyone who tries to call out the game they're running.
Right.
But just like your previous conversation about Joe Biden, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have eyes. They didn't need the media to tell them something was wrong with Joe Biden. We all saw it, but yet they didn't want to believe it because the people that they have placed their whole faith and trust in told them everything was fine. And they just covered their eyes up and said, I don't see it. Right? That is what they're doing in these communities, in these churches. They know that these people are running game on them. They know they're lying, but yet they're refusing to see it.
Right. But what they do, like pastors like Jamal will position themselves as if they're in touch and down with the people, but they really live a very elite lifestyle above their people. Their children go to private schools by his own admission. His children ain't never really been in school with black children. Okay. They get the best of education. So he gets school choice, but your kids can't. He'll live in a gated community where he don't have to worry about Taquayshawn breaking into his car. I don't see him moving off of Farrington Road. That's not gonna happen. He don't want to live near y'all Negroes. No. But he doesn't mind. He'll have his church in that community and go live somewhere else so that when he can go behind his little pearly gates and live, and then he can come and sell wolf tickets to the people. But he's gonna go some more. And it concerned me that the podcaster didn't really engage with much of the lies that Jamal positioned. And a part of me believes that Daniel here knows that Jamal is lying, but he struggled to put and articulate into words how to push back. And so that's why I wanted to react to this, to empower people. These liberal leftists, these black supremacists, they will spout a lot of talking points and they'll rattle it off really fast. And what you need to do is make them slow down and say, no, we're going to engage with one thing at a time. Let me address the lie about immigration. Let me address the lie about this. And then this evangelical lie, he asserts that Christians, evangelicals, only hung their hat on two issues. Now, we could. They're two of the most important issues because one, the sanctity of life impacts the foundation of a healthy society, which is family. If we're not having babies and we're not getting married, we don't have a healthy society. So if we can't get people to understand this life issue, it's going to spill into other issues. And it wasn't just that. The sexual perversion is a problem. Now, I could see why a sexual deviant such as Jamal don't see nothing wrong with a Supreme Court justice who can't acknowledge and tell you or distinguish what is a woman. I can see why he don't have a problem with that. But how can you, as a preacher of the word, expect the people of God to close their eyes to those fundamental, objective truths in exchange for something from the government that they promise, but they never deliver on? Because the question I'd like to position or to present to most Christians who vote Democrat, what have you gotten for your vote other than more poverty, more subjugation, more oppression? You're less free and independent. You rely more on what they promise you, and you have no concept of what it means to function in your freedom and do for yourself, because you're always looking to the government as God to do for you.
Yeah, facts. And like, it's because we've made government the idol, right? And ever since the civil rights movement, that's the way we've turned. And it's this whole thing of, we just got to keep on fighting. No, y'all got to go out and vote so we can keep on fighting and doing this good work. Like Dr. King, like they're just continuing the grift. They have spent 60 years. So this is what I'll say to your audience. I've said it to mine before. One thing we learned from the 1960s was that our political power as Black people came from our grievance. And we have spent the last 60 years ensuring we don't lose our grievance, because that is what we use for our power. And those who go against the grain, they're messing things up. That's why we called our podcast Off Code, because to stay on code means you don't put family business in the street, right?
Right.
So even though we know Pookie and Ray and them are messing up, and it ain't got nothing to do with white supremacy or racism, we can go say it in public. Like we might say it behind closed doors, like, man, they need to do something with themselves. But then we'll get in front of the camera and in front of white people and go, this racism and white supremacy, we need resources in our community, and we'll go do the whole little game, because that's the game we play, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so that's all he's doing. He's playing this game, and the people in the pews have been conditioned to idolize the 1960s and to believe that that's what their legacy is built on, and they must continue in that legacy and in that work, which is just whining and crying and being victims.
I love how you said that that legacy of grievance. That'll preach. I'm gonna have to clip that one out. Let's go ahead and play some more. And then I have another clip I want to get to.
And so this evangelicals who trumpeted for Trump can't find one time since the election, November 4th, that he's gone to church.
I want to punch him in the mouth with this one. Here's the problem, Jamal. Trump ain't a believer. We know that. Right? Yeah. Like, we're not trying to usher him into the kingdom like y'all was trying to do Kamala, talking about the Lord is anointing is on her life with all the wickedness she was pushing. No, we compartmentalize and know exactly what we were getting with Trump. We are getting a pagan ruler who is sympathetic to the policies that he knows, even he is sinful in his sinfulness, is not suppressing enough truth and unrighteousness to know, for functioning healthy society, we need Christians living out their faith. And he is, by God's grace, allowing us to live out our faith without fear of persecution. But to say that we ain't never seen him go to church, why are you expecting an unconverted person to do what believers do? Now, we know Kamala was in a church or a synagogue of Satan that y'all call a church, but just her appearance, her attendance there did not mean anything. And in fact, do you remember what she said when she was actually in a church? She was on the campaign trail and someone mentioned Jesus and how she blasphemed God. It was like, you at the wrong rally?
Yep.
So this argument is stupid when he never been to the church.
And not only that, it's just like, outside of the campaign season, when did we ever see Kamala Harris or Joe Biden at a church? They go to a church to pander to Black people during campaign season. That's it. Nobody, Joe's first 100 days in office, no one was counting how many days or Sundays he went to church, because nobody cared. He don't care.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if they were going to your church, I wouldn't even count that as church.
I wouldn't. I don't know why he thought this was a flex. Like he thought this was a mic drop. And I'm so concerned that Daniel's just sitting here letting this dude cook and he's not pushing back. And I'm just like,
because he said later on in the interview that he's been at Jamal Bryant's church in the last couple of weeks, like a couple of times. So he's gone and he's talking about how you appreciate his preaching and stuff. And so you know how we get in the black community, you can't put your mouth on a man of God. It's this high reverence for the pastor. He's sitting across from him and he doesn't know how to challenge him without violating those principles of reverence, right? And so he's in a bad spot.
Yeah, see, I like I said, the discernment factor for me is a problem because how are you a Christian born from above? Now, he could just be spiritually immature. I don't want to just tear the man's salvation down. I don't want to do that. I think there is a lot. We're probably witnessing spiritual immaturity and a lack of discipleship through God's word. Because if you can go to Jamal's church and think and believe that he's a gospel-centered preacher, you're deceived. You're incredibly deceived.
Or how could you sit on the Andy Stanley? Yeah, how can you sit on the Andy Stanley's preaching all those years and then not see that Jamal Bryant is not preaching the text at all?
There's no way you could be at Andy Stanley's church and then go to New Birth and think that they are one and the same, or the latter is better than the former. You just can't. Now you might say one has more entertainment value, and one uses emotionalism to elicit a response from you. But what you can't say is that one is rooted and grounded in the truth of Scripture. And no, ain't no way.
Look, I'm gonna save somebody some time. You do not need to go to Jamal Bryant's church. It's all you need. If you want to get what he's selling, this is what you need to do. Watch MSNBC to get your Trump derangement syndrome, because he's just saying the same stuff. And then just go to like a Tony Robbins event or watch Tony Robbins online to motivate you about your mindset and your purpose and your passions. And then that's it. Call it a day. You don't need to go to church for that, because that's all he's doing is preaching to you about your increase, about your season, about,
your haters,
your time. Yeah, your haters and all. That's all he's doing. And then the women out there shouting and running around. That's all it is.
Facts. Okay, so he's going to spend more time talking about Trump here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to pull up this other clip. Let's engage with this one.
This administration is vehemently against free speech when right now you have a college student from Columbia University who is imprisoned because he spoke in support of Palestine. Under an executive order, the president has issued that if you protest on a college university and you're an immigrant, you are deported. But if you are a citizen, then you ought to be permanently expelled. That to me is censorship. Yeah. Censorship is to say, if you vandalize a Tesla, then it is a federal act of terrorism. But if you storm the U.S. Capitol, then you are pardoned. Censorship is saying that the judge told President Trump, do not send those immigrants on the plane. They do not, and still take them over. And now they said this morning that they want the judge off of the bench.
I don't think he understands what censorship is. He's conflated a lot of, now I figured him out. What Jamal will do is, it's like that 3-card Monty. You think you're supposed to be following this card right here, but he's moving so fast, and you're like, wait a minute, shoot, what the heck? I done lost the card. What are we talking about again?
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yeah. And just saying so many falsehoods, first of all, and you leave out important details. Every lie has some truth to it, but you leave out the details, right?
Right.
So the student at Columbia is an immigrant. He was here on a student visa, and he didn't just speak out for Palestine. If you're aware of what happened at Columbia, those weren't just peaceful protests that he was leading. And they were vandalizing, they were breaking things, they were occupying buildings, they were preventing students from entering certain parts of campus, especially if they were Jewish, right? They were harassing people, they were doing all types of stuff. And he was the spokesperson for the group, negotiating their demands with the the university's administration. That's the role he played. He wasn't just somebody who just spoke out for Palestine. No, he was leading protests, violent, illegal protests, and occupying buildings, and just this wasn't your standard protesting,
right? Especially when you were already told to disperse.
Yes, and so no, if you're here in our country as a guest and you're going to do those types of things, we have the right to tell you to leave. That's not censorship.
When you're a Marxist and a socialist and a colored communist, you don't really believe that you need a nation with borders. So the immigrant in Jamal's worldview and paradigm, he doesn't see anything wrong with, you notice how he puts the immigrant on par with a citizen of the U.S. and believes, oh, Americans have the First Amendment right. We have the right to free speech. We have the right to assemble and peacefully protest. Why does he attribute or conflate the two? He conflates a lot. And I don't understand why this dude is not, wait a minute, whoa, you talking we and oranges. Can we engage with that a little? But this probably would have been a 3-hour interview if he would have really challenged what Jamal actually said. But he brought up, and it was fair, he brought up January 6th. And I knew he would because that's all they have. Do you have any thoughts about?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So he said, if you bomb a Tesla, you're going to prison because it's a federal crime. But if you January 6th, then you're pardoned. Last time I checked, those people were in prison for like 3 years. They were pardoned because it was like, okay, they've been in prison for this for 3 years. That's enough time.
Right.
It wasn't. And then tell me this: what BLM protester from 2020 who burned cities, who ransacked and burned out police stations, who took over parts of a major U.S. city and called it an autonomous zone and was armed? How many of those people went to prison? Zero.
None of them. It was the summer of love.
So if you want to talk about double standards, the January 6 people at least went to prison, and some of them went to prison for not even really doing anything.
Right.
But yet the BLM protesters, not a single one went to prison. Not only did they not go to prison, Kamala Harris was on Twitter tweeting out the link to donate money to bail people out of jail. Now, if you're in jail, you weren't peacefully protesting. If you're in jail, it's because you were doing some violent act and you got arrested. And Kamala Harris was saying, bail them out. Hey, y'all, give money so we can bail them out. That is the double standard. And we know this, especially with the you say the melanated Marxists and the melanated communists, colored communists. It's the whole thing of repressive tolerance, where you tolerate activities from the left. Then when the right does it, you demonize it and you don't tolerate it. Right. So one, you say nothing about, you praise, you uplift it. And then when the other side does anything like it, you demonize it. It's just a complete double standard. And they think that we're too stupid to realize that's what they're doing. Because people like you and I would say Summer of Love was stupid. January 6th was stupid. Right. That's it. Equal scales. Right. They can't do that. They can't do that.
Well, and the reason is because when I have asserted for the past couple of months that Jamal Bryant was absolutely a trained Marxist, right? That whole be a disruptor that we've heard him quote in sermons before, to him, with those visa students were doing, that they're just being a disruptor. Like the chaos that they orchestrate BLM, he don't see anything wrong with the BLM protest. He didn't see anything wrong with these Palestinians protesting. These are anti-American sentiments. And individuals like Jamal continue to push anti-American sentiment, and then they sympathize with our enemies. People who hate this country, who are here, who were welcomed here, who you want to talk trash and act treasonous toward us, and still stay on this soil and go to our schools. No, we about to ship your tribe behind back. You got to go. It was a privilege for you to be here. But in his worldview and his paradigm, being a disruptor and the chaos, it's all a part of that Marxist communist playbook.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing too. When you're the oppressed, then any act of violence you do is a justified act of resistance to your liberation. That's it. And so 2020 for them was perfectly justified. October 7th, Hamas attack on Israel, perfectly justified. That's right. That's why BLM was praising it. You know, so once you understand how these people think, you understand why somebody like Jamal Bryant, who has the fist on his pulpit, you know, whenever you mix the fist with the cross, you know you're off, right? And so yeah, that's kind of what you just know that's just you know what you're gonna get when you see that, and he doesn't really hide it well. Like you say, he uses the terminology.
He calls his
He
church members
praises the right thing.
comrades.
Yes, comrades. Like he's not hiding it at all, right? He's got the fist on the pulpit, and so you know what he is. And so yeah.
Do you think that Black Americans are easily deceived and persuaded by the wickedness of Jamal's words because they are ignorant of history, or are we just more gullible than other people groups?
Oh, you're trying to get me in trouble.
Why is it gonna get you? See, you know, I say stuff and I don't. That's a problematic
statement. No, it's just, you know, the truth just hurts sometimes.
It didn't.
We as a people have been conditioned for a long time.
Right.
So this effort to infiltrate the Black community started back in the 1930s. Right. And we've had almost 100 years of them working on us to make us think a certain way. I've said it many times. To be Black, quote unquote, Black in many ways is to be Marxist. Whether we know it or not, our thinking is shaped by Marxist thinking because the leaders they raised up and put before us were all Marxists, right?
Can you name some of those for our listening audience? I don't want to talk over their heads. I picked up exactly what you were putting down, but you need to make it a little bit more plain and explain, because a lot of us are coming from a worldview that you're like, what do you mean our leaders were Marxists? Like who?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest name I would throw out there is W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Yeah. The founder of the NAACP, he was a Marxist. And you can just Google W.E.B. Du Bois with Mao. And he's over in China just shaking hands and smiling. He's a
Welcomed
communist.
him. Yes. Our civil rights leaders.
Yeah, civil rights leaders.
Every single last one of them.
Dr. King publicly would say he's not a Marxist or he didn't support communism, but behind the scenes, he would say favorable things. And the people he surrounded himself with were communists. The person his speechwriter, the person who wrote the I Have a Dream speech was a communist. He's still alive today and he still claims he's a communist, right? But we don't get told that. You know, we don't get told that all these figures in our history, you know, the Langston Hugheses of the world, the Toni Morrisons, like all these people that we raised up to be thought leaders, and we don't realize they were really Marxist, you know? But this has been an intentional plan since the 1930s from Russia. The Kremlin tried to use Black people as a disruptor of American capitalism, an American way of life. And so they have spent the last, you know, almost 100 years conditioning us to be angry, to be bitter, to be victims. And that's why when Jamal says these things, it really don't resonate to a lot of Black people because we've been hearing it for 100 years. We just don't know it's been an intentional op against us. Right.
That was very powerful what you said. I'm so glad that you brought up the Russian influence in we know it and I believe it that legitimate grievances that the Black American community had were exploited and used in order to usher in that Marxist communist agenda, meaning we were legitimately being subjugated and oppressed by Democrats. I always say that. I don't like saying by America. No, I lay that claim at the feet of the Democrat Party. Why? The KKK, the whole Jim Crow system, all of it was Democrat-sponsored subjugation and oppression. Those legitimate disparities were exploited and used for the Kremlin to wiggle their little wheezy tentacles in and then identify and use key players in our community that they knew could sell us this foolishness. And now the way we think, we really believe, well, what you mean the government ain't gonna pay for my child care and my health care, and I don't get free this, and I don't get free that. Like, to us, it is second nature to depend on the government. And I'm gonna say something real controversial. Black women, more than anybody else, are some of the most melanated minded Marxist individuals. We live and function in the real world that way, in terms of how we view marriage and men as optional. The nuclear family is always nice to have, but that may not be for me. The way we view government dependence after a woman after 50 years old, it's like, okay, where's my check? The government dependence, we are ingrained to think this way. And when I say that we are effectively living under 3 to 4 generations of melanated, matriarchal, Marxist-minded bastards raising bastards, that's what it is. What else do you want me to call it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this too, just so people, would know what the game is. Like I said, we spent the last, 60 years making sure we don't lose our grievance. What they've done is they make sure we stay bitter, angry, and victims. And so just think about the movies they produce for us, right? Think about the entertainment and the art. It's always something to do with slavery, something to do with our oppression. Like, and we go watch, we go watch 12 Years a Slave. We go watch The Butler and The Help and Sinners, and we go watch all of this stuff, right? And then we leave out the movie theater feeling a certain way, right? And then here come the politicians. And this is what's sad. The reason that they don't pick up on the game from the politicians is because they hear it from their pulpit. So the politician is just saying what they hear at church.
That's that iron triangle.
Yeah, so how could the politician be wrong? And to take it all the way back, who did Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who did she go to when she wanted to push her plan? And this was her plan. Her plan was to stop Black people from reproducing, right? The undesirables, she called us. And what did she do? Yes, human weeds. And who did she go to sell us that this was a good thing for us? She went to the Black pastor.
The Negro preacher.
They've been doing it. It was her
useful tool.
Yes. Yeah. Dr. King won the pastor by coincidence, right? They know if you're going to get the way to get the trust of the Black community is the office of the pastor. Jamal Bryant's doing the same thing. Raphael Warnock doing the same thing. The Reverend Jesse Jackson did the same thing. The Reverend Al Sharpton did the same thing. They know that you garner the Black community's trust if you say Reverend, right?
How is it we can't see this?
Because we don't. Part of us don't want to see it, and the other part is like it's just been so ingrained in us. And this is the thing too. They have conditioned us to that if you don't go for this, if you don't believe this, then you ain't Black. Right.
You're against your own people, against your interests.
Yeah, they have demonized, and this is what people don't know. The whole demonization and calling Blacks who don't go along coons and Uncle Tom came from the communist playbook. It came from the Soviet Union, who told them, hey, this is what you do to the Negroes that won't go along. You call them Uncle Toms, and so they've been doing, look what they do to Clarence Thomas.
That's ridiculous.
Like you would think a man who came from where he came from, who made it to the Supreme Court in the 90s, the early 90s, he got put on the Supreme Court. You would think that would be a hero that we aspire other people to look up to. They tear that man down. Why? Because he's not the Marxist, right?
And most Black people, if you ask them, hey, why you don't like Clarence Thomas? Oh, Uncle Clarence, that cool, that sellout. Oh, why? Like what ruling do you disagree with, and why?
No,
why?
they can't
How
go
is
that
his
far.
worldview wrong? What's wrong with his worldview?
Yeah. And I'll say this too on the other part of you saying, hey, are we just too, like, what's the reason we can't? We are a very emotional people. And they play to our emotions. And when you are heavily emotional, you don't think. You're led by your emotions, and they do it to us every 4 years. I mean, really, Joe Biden, talking about they're gonna put y'all back in chains.
And folks were like,
Stacey,
"Oh Lord, what we gonna do? Oh, I don't want them chains. Them chains are tight and rusty."
Stacey Abrams calling a voter ID law Jim Crow 2.0. And look, and though none of y'all Negroes know a black person that ain't got an ID.
Listen, I know dope boys with IDs.
Yeah, and play this. And if somebody don't have an ID, how many black people you think live in this world, pay bills, and are looking to vote that don't have an ID?
Right, like you can't even go to even if you don't have a bank account, you can't go to the title pawn, the check cashing spot. You can't do anything without an ID.
Everybody has an ID.
Everybody got an ID.
But she can. Well, why is she? The question is, why is she invoking that rhetoric? Why is she calling it Jim Crow? Because they're trying to make black people emotional and fearful. And that is what angers me more than anything, because I see what they're doing to people. And the fear is real. Mm-hmm. Black people live in this fear of the white supremacist boogeyman, right?
Right. I'm just like, we've never really seen them. We haven't really seen any widespread white supremacist-led crime against a plethora of black people in mass in a really long time. So people alive today, I'm like, you have no experience of that. Where is this fear coming from? Like, do you actually see people on horses riding through your subdivision, coming around you up with a lasso? Like, you've seen that. And if you've seen that, do you not understand this is why we have the Second Amendment? And if they think they're about to come down your street and come get you, somebody about to die, and it ain't gonna be you. Like, I'm ready to shoot somebody in a heartbeat. I don't. This is why when I always talk about functioning in your freedom, I don't think we've ever learned and understood what it means to. We've never assimilated and viewed ourselves as patriots and citizens in this country, because these melanated Marxists for so long keep the grievance at the forefront of our minds for so long that we don't believe that we are free. We don't even have a desire to taste what it means to function in our freedom. Like, it ain't even on the tip of our tongues. We've traded physical slavery for ideological slavery, and we don't even know the difference. We think that they're the same.
Yeah. You won't believe this, but to my right over here on my wall, I have a picture of Barack Hussein Obama on my wall.
Blasphemy. Why?
The reason I do is because back in the day when he won the presidency, my dad did not know that I was a conservative. And so, because this is the thing, back in the day, especially, being black and a conservative, it was like coming out of the closet kind of deal.
That's true.
Yeah. And so it wasn't anything I didn't talk politics with my dad. And so it wasn't like it was some secret. He just didn't know. And so after Obama won, he got the front page of the Birmingham News laminated for me as a gift, and he gave it to me. I was like, "Oh, thanks, Dad." It's kind of awkward, but
but why didn't you say something?
He meant well, but at the same time, I still understood the historical significance of the moment,
right?
And so I was like, "Okay, this is historical. So what am I gonna do with this?" I said, "I'm gonna go get it framed." And so I went to Michael's. Had it framed, and the girl was like, "Hey, do you want to engrave anything on it?" And I hadn't even thought about that. And I was like, "You know what? I do." And so it's hanging on my wall right now because engraved on this nice framed picture of Obama, I put 3 words on it: "No more excuses." No more excuses. because everything I heard growing up in the black community was America is so racist, they'll never let a black man be president.
Right.
And so the moment he became president, it was like, okay, now what's the excuse? What's the reason?
Since we confessing, I don't have a framed picture of Barack Obama anywhere in this house, but unlike you, I was a liberal when Obama was inaugurated, and my husband's an artist, like he draws and he paints. He has a portrait of our then one. He wasn't even one. He's a baby sitting. Well, he's sitting in a chair, and he has a book with an American flag, like kind of draped over it. And he's got a 44 on his onesie. That was our tribute to Barack. And Isaiah's looking up like, this the change I believe in. Oh, I'm so ashamed. So ashamed.
Oh, man.
We was pro-blackity black for real.
Hey, I get it. My political awakening came. I tell everybody I went from in 2000 being upset that Al Gore got robbed to by 2004 I was voting Bush, right? So mine had been real, long time. Yeah. My pretty much my entire adult life, I realized that my values, and nothing changed with me. I just realized that the values I grew up with growing up in the black church didn't align with the Democrat Party, which I had been told I had to vote for. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. So once I started paying attention, I just realized that my values and what I believed didn't align with what I was voting for.
Right.
And so I just switched up my vote to align with my beliefs. That's all.
But let Jamal tell it. Danny here is having an identity crisis.
I know. And that's the thing. He's not. Black people have an identity crisis because even now, more so 20 years ago, but it's still even true today, black people are still very conservative. We are conservative, and then we vote progressive liberal.
I used to believe that. I think
it used to be true.
A lot of us are still. It used to be very true, but not anymore. The worldview that I see so many of my people shockingly embrace, especially like this LGBT trans stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just knew the illegal immigration thing was going to do it for them. Nope. It's like, I really believe they were putting fluoride in our water on purpose to make sure that we just was dumbed down and wouldn't be able to think straight. Because the stuff that I see some of my people supporting, I just be like, you couldn't have been thinking this through. You couldn't.
There's the thing. It's two things. Not only are we overly emotional, we're very loyal, right? And especially to the man in the pulpit. So as long as these pulpits keep pushing this stuff, it's gonna be hard for people to ever break away from it, because why would the man of God lie to them? Why would their pastor who they love lie to them?
Because they're wolf.
But they don't know. Every Sunday, Jamal Bryant gets up there and regurgitates MSNBC talking points.
He does. I thought it was isolated, but he really does every single week. There is no sermon that he fails to mention Trump. The politics is just ingrained in his ethos. He can't help it.
Yeah. I mean, he took apparently DOD memo about shaving, about being kicked out if you can't get your shaving bumps under control, and that affects like 99% of black soldiers, or soldiers who deal with this issue, are black. And so he took this thing and saying they're trying to get rid of black soldiers, and then he compared it to Jesus. He said they ripped Jesus' beard out, right? And so everything he tries to preach on.
Don't you get up on this platform and lie like this.
I'm not. It was like, no, he didn't. No, he did not try to tie those two things together. But everything is about Trump did something to black people. And then he tried to tie it some way to something that happened to Jesus, and Jesus can see you, and they didn't know it wasn't his time. It is our time now. Like, it's the same pattern. It's the same thing every week. And you be like, man, how in the world are these people hearing this and think that has anything to do with the word of God? But they do. They're shouting and running around the church.
Right. There's this other clip that I wanted to engage with. It's not this one because it moves. I'm trying to move away from the politics. I am. Maybe it's this one. Oh yeah. Let's see. These are I have two more. I didn't play all of them. This is a shorter one.
Okay.
What was the main reason they were after you at the White House?
Let me preface this. He asked. Before this, Jamal was bemoaning, woe is me. They put my picture up at the White House, but I didn't see them say nothing about so-and-so or so-and-so, so-and-so. And now Daniel's asking him, what was the issue with them putting up your picture up at the White House? And then Jamal's going to explain it.
Now,
that's what.
Hold up. Now, putting his picture up, is he talking about when the Black conservatives were there for that gathering for the Black History Month program?
That's it.
And so Black conservatives had like this picture of Jamal Bryant. Okay, all right.
Right. I thought it was petty, but
Yeah, it was petty. I wouldn't have done it.
Heck no, I ain't about to give him that kind of attention, but he loved it.
Exactly.
He's trying to act like he was, they just put a target on my back. He loved every minute of that shine.
What was the main reason they were after you at the White House?
That's what I'm saying to you. That's what I'm saying to you is that I spoke to an economic entity dealing with Target. People speak out against Trump. Any one of us pull up our Explore page.
Yeah.
It's anti-Trump, anti-Elon, ask Tesla. It's only one picture in there, and that picture was mine because we're making an economic impact. Target has lost $2 billion in valuation. Their stock has dropped by $12 a share. Target quietly is laying off 25 people a day. This administration don't care nothing about no speeches, about no sermons. When you impact the economy, doesn't it say, hey, come on, Jodeci, come and talk to me. We got to figure it out. So when you deal with righteous indignation, and what does that look like? The gospel in and to itself is offensive. When you preach the pure gospel of Jesus Christ, somebody gonna be mad.
Yeah.
That Negro ain't done that a day in his life. That Negro ain't preached the pure gospel of Jesus Christ a day in his life.
I don't even think he know it.
No, he don't know it.
He don't know it. When I heard him say this part, I was like, okay, Jamal is delusional if he really thinks that the reason why the Black conservatives put that picture up of him at the White House was because he was making some sort of measurable economic impact. No, they were just clowning him. That's really what it was. They were clowning him because they thought the boycott or the fast was just stupid and silly. But now, to be fair, I think all that's happening to Target, I don't think it's enough. I could tell you this. Target has been in conversations with other CEOs, and other CEOs are telling them, don't you budge. Don't you move an inch. This gonna blow over soon. If you give in to them, you're gonna have to give in to every other two-bit race baiting trading hustler that comes demanding what they think they owe. So if they got to scale back, now granted, it's good for them. It's good for them because all the virtue signaling that they did, it wasn't done in good faith anyway. They don't care nothing about no Black people. They were just doing this for the optics of it all. But I think Jamal is delusional in that he thinks that the government cared about his Target fast when the Black conservatives during Black History Month at the White House were just making fun of him.
Yeah. Does he think the federal government really cares about Target?
That's what it sounded like he was saying.
Like Target's one company. The federal government. So conservatives boycotted Target before they did.
We sure did with the LGBT stuff.
Yeah, and got change. And so now they're trying to do the same thing. It's like, so the federal government, did they target conservatives because of Target? Like, I don't know. He wants to make himself seem bigger than he is. And talking about he's making an impact. Like, you're not. Nobody knows you. Right? In the grand scheme of this country, nobody knows who Jamal Bryant is. Right?
Right.
The White House aren't scheming and making plans. I'll say this too. I'm gonna say this. Black people, we overinflate our importance to the point where we believe every decision made in this country is about us. And it's like, man, ain't nobody thinking about you.
It's the ethnic narcissism. That's why I call it that.
I constantly have to remind Black people, I'm like, y'all do know we're not 50% of this country, right? Because y'all talk like we're this big part of this country. We are 13%. Everything that is done in this country ain't got nothing to do with us.
And shrinking. We're shrinking because of the abortion numbers.
Yes. And it's like we overinflate our importance. We act like there are only Black people and white people in America, right? We act like history is only about Black people and white people.
But when you're ethnically narcissistic, you do. But I keep trying to remind Jamal, you have no leverage. You have no leverage.
Because this is the thing. If anybody is boycotting Target and making an impact, it's going to be left-wing progressives on the West Coast. Right. That is who really is going to make a dent in them. And yeah, and a lot of them are mad because they're upset about DEI going away.
Right.
But they're not listening to Jamal Bryant sermons and making that decision.
Exactly. I just thought it was funny that when he inserts gospel preaching, I said, wait, what? Let's let him finish talking about his gospel-centered preaching.
Okay.
Because our job as carriers of the gospel is not to be masseuse, but to be chiropractors. I got to make you feel uncomfortable to straighten that back out. And if we're not doing that, then we're just Richard Dyer. We're motivational speakers. And I think that somehow we got into a...
Now look, play this. At what time has Jamal Bryant ever made his congregants uncomfortable with the gospel?
And preached against sin? Never.
Yeah, when has he preached against sin and made his congregation uncomfortable? Right? Activism is not the gospel.
It is his gospel. It's his Black liberation gospel. It's not the gospel of the Lord Jesus. He thinks that is the gospel. The oppression, the load, the liberation, and the victimhood. That is his gospel.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what I'll say too. As long as that is your gospel, and he mentioned about God being the God of the oppressed, you are going to make sure that you're always the oppressed.
Nice.
You can't ever not be the oppressed, because if God is the God of the oppressed, then you got to stay oppressed.
Right.
And so that mindset has done more to hurt our people than anything white supremacists could ever dream of.
But notice how are you oppressed and an heir of Jesus Christ at the same time? Because I know what scripture says and affirms about my identity in Christ and who I am, what Ephesians tells me I am. I just don't understand how are we both and?
Yeah.
Right. Like, how am I oppressed, but I'm also an heir of Jesus Christ, adopted into the family of God, co-heirs? Like, how is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's because he has the identity crisis. He doesn't know who he is in Christ. And this is where another part of his identity crisis, because I didn't know this until he said it in this interview. He talked about how he grew up. He's the fourth generation, or his kids is the fourth generation to graduate from college. Right. He didn't grow up in the gutter. Yeah, he grew up. He said, I grew up at the Cosbys, right? So a lot of times what you have is Black people who didn't grow up in the gutter. They didn't grow up in the hood. They didn't grow up poor. They feel some type of guilt, or they feel they're not as truly Black. And so they overcompensate for their privilege or their blessings by trying to show how down they are for the cause. And that's what Jamal is.
Oh,
that's it. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, you grew up like the Huxtables. You feel guilty about it. You're trying to prove your Blackness, and this is how you do it.
But he don't have to do that. But he only does it when it's convenient for him, because in the same sermon, he'll preach a victimhood narrative, and then he'll preach the season harvest favor breakthrough increase. And I'm like, this is a schizophrenic worldview.
Yes. Yeah, you're so oppressed, your cup is gonna be overflowing. Like, that don't make sense.
Right, I'm my next season I'm gonna own multiple houses and I'm gonna have more than enough. Long as you sow your seed here, though, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
All over the last 20 years of not speaking truth to power. It's been prominent and prevalent in white evangelical churches to call into accountability Biden and Kamala Harris and Obama. Hey, you're going too far having a rainbow flag outside the White House. You're going too far of performing same-sex marriages on the ground. So, okay, call them out, do that. But when you do that to somebody who is Republican, this isn't the Christ-like way. The evangelicals from their pulpit call Kamala Harris a witch.
Because she is. Like, wait a minute.
But no. This is the thing. I mean, I know evangelicals are wide swath.
Right.
But what we know is, with most white, or not even white, just most evangelical churches in general, how they revere the pulpit and what they believe the pulpit is for. You do not get that type of political rhetoric in an evangelical church. You just don't. Not from the pulpit.
No.
Not from the pulpit. You just don't. Now, you might get, the Paula Whites, who's not an evangelical. And there are some exceptions, like what's the Jeffries dude in First Baptist Dallas, the Trump Church, I call it.
The Trump.
Yeah, but evangelicals criticize churches like that and people like that.
They do.
That is not the norm within evangelicalism. He has no clue, right? But that type of rhetoric, that's the thing. There is no more political entity in America than the Black church.
Come on.
Right? I grew up with politicians, they were always Democrats,
always
coming to church on Sunday mornings and getting a platform, right?
Yes.
Getting the microphone, saying a few words, addressing the church, and we see them do it even today. And then the pastor, talk about how we got to get out and vote for them and we got to support them. We got to keep doing this good work and all. Like that is what you get in the Black church,
right.
The evangelical church, there is a common political ideology that is usually shared by most of conservatism, but it don't get preached to you because that ain't unless it's somewhere in the scripture and it comes up that week.
Right.
That ain't what you getting preached to.
They get a steady diet. They get a steady diet of Democrat Marxist politics every single week. To where they think that is the gospel. They think that there is their mandate from the scriptures to be disruptors, and knows how he said it, to speak truth to power. There's more of that communist Marxist languaging. He thinks that is the gospel.
Yes. It is taking the Black struggle or Black history or the Black narrative,
right,
and reading it into scripture, the Black experience into scripture. So when God lead the Israelites out of Egypt, that was us.
That's you. You like, really?
And I have to say this because I don't know who's listening. Black people are not God's people. Those two things are not the same.
Right.
Right. Israel was God's people. Black people, when we put ourselves into that text and we talk about God being our deliverer, Black people are not his people. We are not Israel.
That's so hard for so many of us to hear. But the good news is, under the new covenant, he has a new people, right? Of every tribe, tongue, nation, and people group. So you included, you grafted in, though. You included.
And so if Jamal Bryant's gospel doesn't include that, that's why you can't have a Black-centered gospel. That's why you can't have a Black theology, right? Because the minute you do that, you're ignoring the fact that it wasn't meant for Black, right? It was meant for God's people of every nation, tribe, and tongue. And so if you're not viewing God's people as that and viewing the church from a broader lens outside of the Black experience or Black liberation, then you are completely missing the point of the gospel. And that's Jamal's problem.
Amen. I agree. Let's let them finish up.
from the pulpit called her the Antichrist. If you do any of that about Trump and Musk, you risk losing 501c3.
Why he out here lying?
Cap.
We've been waiting to see when you was going to lose yours.
Cap.
He is shielded and protected.
I just told you how political the black church is, and they ain't lost a 501c3 yet. But you know who was at risk for losing the 501c3? People who didn't go along with gay marriage, churches that didn't go along with gay marriage. That's who was at risk of losing their 501c3 status.
Wicked.
And who argued that? The Obama administration. Right? So if you want to know why Christians ran to Trump and voted for Trump, blame your boy Obama.
Right, who effectively ushered in all that sodomy.
Or Obama is the reason the bakers, the Christian bakers were getting sued and the photographers were getting sued, right? He was the reason behind that, right? And when the Supreme Court asked him, could churches lose their 501c3 status the way Oral Roberts did when they didn't go along with interracial marriage, the Obama administration said that it's a possibility, right? And so if you want to know why evangelicals chose a bully like Trump, blame Obama.
Right. And the argument for that would be evangelicals chose Christ and his commands versus some handout from a government entity that breaks their promises anyway. Like they don't come through with nothing they promise. They never fulfill a campaign promise. They never do.
No.
Yeah, quick, right in my thread. Oh, take away their taxable status. Because this isn't what the church is supposed to be. And so I think somehow we got cushioned and cozy in America because it's supposed to be a Christian nation. But whenever your view of Christianity goes against the main populist view of Christianity, then they question your Christianity.
Yeah, I don't.
Did he just snitch on himself and admit that his view of Christianity is not orthodox?
Yes, he did. He got his own view of Christianity.
I told y'all this was another gospel with another Jesus, with its own soteriology and another path to salvation. I mean, this is other. Because I'm like, well, what do you mean? What's so different?
Yeah.
I mean, I can identify what's different, but the fact that he acknowledged it, I said, thank you. Now we know.
Yeah.
Now we know.
From the horse's mouth.
This last clip is toward the end where the interviewer asked him about the legacy of New Birth and how he was able to take over and step in and fill such large shoes of Bishop Long.
Amen. Can we end on Eddie Long's impact? He took New Birth from 300 members, I believe, to 25,000, one of the biggest churches in the world.
Yeah.
What describe his impact and the pressure it may or may not have felt on you to step into those shoes?
Yeah. Eddie Long was a futurist. If you walked in my church today, the building, you wouldn't think that it's 25 years old. He was ahead of his time. What he was able to do in amassing a movement for men has been unparalleled to this day. His shortcomings regrettably become the headline of his life. But the church's resurgence is evidence that the scripture's right. The church can't be built on an individual. It's got to be built on him. So the reason why the church is thriving is that it is beyond the flaws and the vulnerability of man, but the perfection of the ultimate sacrifice of Christ. And I am, as a recipient of grace, grateful that that same grace is extended to me to be able to stand.
So, I don't know. Jamal thinks that New Birth is making a resurgence and that the ministry is thriving and that regardless of all the sin issues that church had, they're still standing. Like, he thinks this is the work of the Spirit actually happening. What do you say about this?
I mean, for a minute there, he almost sounded orthodox. He almost sounded like he was truly humble. Then I have to realize that it's Jamal Bryant. And this is one thing I'll say. Jamal Bryant pastors like him have to make sure they posture themselves in a way to when they fall, their congregants will extend them grace. Right. Because they will. Mm-hmm. They will. We knew Eddie Long had his shortcomings, and it was evident in his church the fact that they would even call Jamal Bryant to be a pastor after Eddie Long passed away because Jamal Bryant was acting a fool up in Baltimore.
Facts.
Right?
Right. Like, I'm like, y'all recruited him. They recruited him.
Yes. It shows you where that church was. And, theologically, doctrinally, from a discernment standpoint, they have no clue what a man of God is supposed to look like and live like. They just have no clue.
Right.
And so, yeah, I didn't buy that at all because, like I said, Jamal Bryant knows what to say. He's not a fool. He understands what he has to say. And so, yeah, that was a good answer because he could be humble and talk about the grace of God, so that when he does stumble or when it comes out that he stumbled, he can talk about God's grace upon him and the work of God and and what we're building here and what God is doing here. We can't let one man or one misstep tear it down. More fair, yeah. It's posturing. That's what I'll say.
Right. I thought it was interesting that he brought up the movement of men that Bishop Long. Now, I used to go to New Birth, and he's talking about there was the men's ministry in New Birth was called the Nation of Jesus. And listen, I ain't gonna lie. When I tell you Bishop Long really was a futurist, he really was. Like, if you were to walk into New Birth today, there's not much improvement that they had to do to that building and facility because it really was ahead of its time. Technology wise, the campus, the furnishings, the decor, everything about that cathedral was just top notch. It was like next level. And I remember when we moved from Snapfinger Road, the smaller facility, into the cathedral off of Woodrow Road, it was just, you're like, wow. And like back then, you're like, look what the Lord did, right? And Bishop Long did have this very infectious way of drawing people to him, and particularly men. And well, now that sounded real bad. An infectious way of drawing men to him. Okay, let me try to clean that. No, it is what it is.
No, you can't clean it up.
The New Birth had a lot of men. It wasn't like it is now where it's all the matriarchy and all those women. New Birth was not like that when Bishop Long was there. I mean, you could go to New Birth and get you a man. You could. You could go, and on any given Sunday, you're going to meet somebody. They're going to try to holler. That was happening at New Birth. But they also had a huge population of queens with a K. Like, it was just like, where are these girly men with this long hair and these flowing capes? And, they want a lot of them. It's just one particular one that comes to mind that was always around the bishop a lot. He was a fashion designer. It was a lot of that. And I thought it was interesting that now when you look at New Birth, according to Jamal's own words, it's the ministry has done a resurgence, which I would agree it's not, because the balcony is not full. Just that lower level is packed out for the most part, but they have every Sunday at New Birth in that balcony was full until the stuff about the boys came out.
Yeah.
But he thinks that this ministry is thriving. And I guess in comparison to its heyday, no, but in comparison to other ministries of its size, in light of how apostate the church has become and how people are walking away from it, I guess by that definition, you could say it's thriving. But notice how he doesn't deal with the sin. He doesn't deal with the sin, and he thinks that because the church, I guess, is still cash flowing because all the begging he does every week, that the ministry, that is evidence that it is thriving and making an impact. I just thought that was interesting to hear him describe it this way.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised though. So I don't know if a lot of people know this about Jamal Bryant. When he was in Baltimore and it came out that he was having an affair and cheating on his wife. And you would think that first of all, you think that he would be removed, but he wasn't. The church wasn't that solid. But you would think there would be some type of humility and contriteness or something the next week after this kind of controversy blows up. But no.
Right.
This man got up in the pulpit the next Sunday and preached about David.
I'm still a man. David, was it I'm still a man?
I'm still the man.
Oh, the
Nathan told David, you're still the man. In other words, God's not going to remove you. This man got up there and preached that sermon, speaking to himself. I'm still the man. Y'all ain't go. God ain't go remove me from this seat.
And it worked though.
It worked.
Because them thoughts were still showing up every week.
And when he preached that sermon, those women were amening. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And so in my mind, Jamal Bryant has never changed from that. He's
just older. He hasn't.
He's older. That's it. That is it. He's just older now. I mean, this was back in the day.
Right.
This is back in the day, and we were talking about this stuff on MySpace.
Oh, we old, Kevin. Not the MySpace. There's probably people on here like, what's MySpace?
I know. I still have fun memories of MySpace.
Do you? Was your page tricked out? Mine was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mine was pink and sparkly. I had music. Oh
yeah. See, man, need to bring it back.
My MySpace page was the joy. What? I remember I had a MySpace page, and when Facebook came out, I was like, "Oh, what is Facebook?"
I know.
And then everybody jumped over to Facebook, and I was like, "But what about MySpace? I'm still here."
Yes, because you couldn't construct your own page on Facebook, right?
I was just like, "This is whack."
I can't rank my friends.
No customization. You couldn't rank nobody. It was just blue and white. And then right on the wall and poke a person. I was like, this is trash. I was like, what has the world become? Ain't no music. You know what I'm saying? You ain't had nothing swirling around. No glitter.
Nope. Blue and white. Nothing.
And them young folks, the millennials were just coming to their own. They were flocking to Facebook trying to make us Gen Xers looking like we were out of style. They were the problem. It wasn't us. Them. Wanted them.
Give us our MySpace back. Tom was our friend.
He was our first friend, wasn't he?
He was, yep.
Didn't Tom used to send messages like every now and again?
Yeah. Tom sold MySpace, made a bunch of money. Now he just kind of sits in his garage. No, he's an artist, I think. I think he does art.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, he just sold it off. He didn't have to work anymore. He made like hundreds of millions of dollars, and yeah.
Gosh, we should be more like Tom.
I know.
All right, let's finish this clip. This is the last one.
All right.
What do you think New Birth saw in you to have the confidence to appoint you as the new lead pastor?
I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed. Why go from one trouble to another trouble? You should get the opposite of me. Yeah, get somebody happily married. They got an Ola Mills picture, got a nice little wife, and everybody is right there. Again, it's just God's grace to give me an opportunity for the world to see grace on a major stage. And I'm humbled by it. Yeah.
His face is really bothering me. He's like, oh, so good. Bro. What are your final thoughts about this?
I mean, he's not wrong from the standpoint of what were they thinking. It just, like I said, it just shows you the state that Eddie Long had that church in, and what they preached every week. They didn't have. I want to say that they didn't have a mature flock.
No.
You know.
I mean, he got to New Birth in '87, and then passed away 2017.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And that entire time, you had people, some of those original founding members that were still there. And I'm like, y'all have learned what was your faith rooted and grounded in if your pastor comes to this, the demise of what your pastor built comes to this in this scandal, and your first recruit is Jamal Bryant.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows the reason why they recruited. They recruited him because they figure if we give him a platform, he can build an offering and raise an offering and pull us out of this financial pit that we are in. I think it was a cash money move.
Yeah, I mean, they hired the most well-known and charismatic person they could because they knew that that's what would sell. You know, that's what would grow the church and bring people to the church, right? They had to make a splash after Eddie Long, and Jamal Bryant was that.
And he splashed. He splashed. Do you in terms of, you know, his union with his wife, I just seen a recent clip of she was laying hands on the man of God. That is so out of order, but you know, that's neither here or there. What do you think? I mean, you're not a prophet, so I don't, you know, expect you to be able to peer into the future. But do you believe that churches like New Birth are judgments? Or like, what do you think?
Oh man, I don't know how they can't be.
Right.
There's nothing good that comes out of that. Just when you talking about Eddie Long in '87,
Right.
I guarantee you when Eddie Long was there in '87, he probably started out preaching the gospel. He probably started out well, like a lot of ministers did. Then sometime along the way, the temptation for riches came into play.
Absolutely.
And they started doing the prosperity gospel.
Yes.
And then once you start doing that, you start tickling ears. The church starts to grow, right? And then the train just goes from there because it's all about the growth. It's all about the money. It's all about the lifestyle. It's all about the fame and the books and the tours and the private jets and the, you know.
Back then it was albums. Like New Birth Choir came out with an album, and then he did a rap album, and I'm like, this nigga rapping? What?
And that becomes what God's favor and blessing represents, right?
Right.
But yeah, it has to be. I mean, we talk about Atlanta must be stopped all the time, right?
ATL.
Atlanta is heavily churched, but look at Atlanta. But look at it.
We down bad.
It's bad.
It is
Atlanta
bad.
is not okay. And you got folks in church all the time, but what are they getting preached to them? They're getting preached to them. Yeah, this is your season. It's your time. It's your prosperity. You know, your increase, your purpose. That's the key word. That's the hit word now. Purpose.
Right.
Living in your purpose. And I like, they're not getting their souls fed. Nobody's being taught to live what it means to live righteously. Right. That's why they can call somebody like Jamal Bryant. Right? Because their standard of what it means to be the man of God and to be righteous, they don't have one. And so it has to be a judgment. And I pray, and I've looked at, you know, the decline of the Black church, right? What we see as the Black church today was not always the Black church. Just like what we call Black culture today was not always Black culture. Those two declines go hand in hand. And so how could it how can it not be a judgment? You know? And at the end of the day, what we really want is for Black people to repent and believe,
Mm.
you know?
Come on.
Repent and believe. That's it.
Listen, when you say that Black culture and the Black church kind of went hand in hand, all the Black fatigue that we're seeing today, that is not who we were. And so, maybe we should rename that. Well, I will always refer to myself as an American Negro. I really kind of disavow. Listen, those were American Negroes back then who were dressed in the finest attire and who showed up at the grocery store looking the part, looking like well-adjusted citizens. They had, I don't like to use the word pride, but they had an esteem about themselves. The women were regal. They weren't out here, we weren't a bunch of Tatianas. Back then, if you was a Tatiana, the whole community shunned you. You was one of them streetwalker women. But now, listen, and if you think about the role that the Black church played in the community, when you look at pastors like J.H. Jackson and so many of the historic, in the ethnic expression of the Black church, of these great men of God who shepherded well and who were trying to build a dam against the infiltration that they saw coming in, i.e. the civil rights movement and MLK and his whole apostate, sexually deviant ilk. You look at it today and you're like, this is the outworking of that. These pimp preachers are the same. They cut from that same cloth. And then the culture, we're not better off today. So it forces you to ask yourself, what's different? Our faith in God is absent. Our belief in the authority of Scripture is absent. The family is no longer the bedrock and the restraint of evil and the well-ordered, the one thing in our life that was well-ordered and structured. Like I was talking to Dear Well Christian today, Jason, and we were talking about how we don't even need to call it a school to prison pipeline anymore. It should be called a home to prison pipeline. Because at one point when the home was strong, you didn't have to worry about your men being locked up and hauled off in mass incarceration, because instead of calling the police, you would call Taquation's daddy. And Taquation's daddy would handle him. His name wasn't Taquation back then. It was probably like Leroy or Earl or something. But you get the point that I'm making. Fathers restrained the foolishness that was bound up in the heart of their children. And you knew you were gonna have to deal with your father. The police were the least of your concerns. You were like, please call the police. That's gonna be better than anything that my father is going to enact on me. And now it's reversed. Now the fathers, when they're showing up to the traffic stop, the mamas are getting out the car. They're the ones running the traffic stop, showing out, getting arrested. It's just we're just down bad.
We are. And this is the thing. I grew up in the inner city of Birmingham, Alabama. We know what that history of Birmingham is.
Yes.
But yet I grew up in that, what you call that old Negro culture, right? I grew up, my grandmother was a very strong Christian woman. She was the mother of the church, right?
Oh, yes.
No, she led the women's ministry and the women's Bible study. And I remember being, a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, and my grandma would have me and all my cousins, we would sit around and she'd be reading the scriptures to us, right? That's how I grew up. I grew up on Sunday afternoons after church. Of course, all my family and cousins, everybody's at grandma's house. But there were many times during the year where you would have 5, 6, 7 pastors at my grandmother's house.
My grandmama's house too.
Yeah. And so I grew up around that old Negro culture. Right?
Where the deacon come over, the pastors coming, the missionaries are coming through.
Yeah. Because they were from the older generation.
Right.
It was you gotta remember, it's the younger generation. It was the generation that came up through the 60s. You gotta remember, the civil rights movement was a youth movement.
It was.
Yeah, my grandparents had kids by then. They weren't youth. It was the youth movement. It was
Right.
the young people. And our boy Chad Jackson does a great job of playing those old videos like what's her name? Nikki Giovanni, talking
Yes.
about how their generation rebelled against their parents,
Right.
right? Because they got caught up in these liberation movements. They got caught up in the sexual revolution. They got caught up in the feminist movement. They got caught up in the black liberation movement. And they thought they knew better than their parents and their grandparents of that day.
And it's
Right.
destroyed
And
them.
so, yeah. And so they rejected the wisdom of those who came before them and said, we know better. And now we live in the results of that. Right. Because they left the biblical foundation for which our community was built on, and they traded it for a leftist, Marxist, progressive, fake liberation. And that's why God says, that's why First John, he says, do not love the world.
Do not.
Because what's in the world? Because all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the boastful pride of life. If that don't explain black culture today, I don't know what does.
You better preach.
But that's what they sold us down to.
Right.
That's what they sold us out to. And until we get back, until we repent and get back, until we make a 180, nothing's going to change. Because the thing, we're materially better off today as a whole.
Facts. If you got an iPhone, you're materially better.
But we ain't better off.
No.
Black women can go get all these educations, get all these degrees. They ain't better off. No, they still just baby mamas.
And bitter.
And bitter. And alone.
And high calorie.
Big back.
Bless it. I'm working on it. I'm still on my. You see my water. That ain't my ministry. I got to get it. Got a few more pounds to go. I'll get there. I'm going to get there. Listen, Kevin, I'm so grateful that you chose to tag team with me on this topic. It's always good when you come over from the Off Code podcast side of things and you hop on over. If I'm not mistaken, aren't we doing a stream tomorrow on relationships? Me, you,
tomorrow night. Yeah, we're doing a large panel discussion on relationships and marriage. So
yeah, we got to do it, you guys. We were talking amongst ourselves as a group, and we were just talking about so many of the lies and the deception and the distorted view that a lot of people today have of marriage and relationships, and the outworkings of that. It's causing the unintended consequences of it is that there are some godly women and godly men who they both want relationships and they want to be married, but we can't get any of them from point A to point B. And it's because of there's some ideological and cultural and social roadblocks in the way. And so some of the married folk and some of the single folk are going to get on a panel and we're going to talk about what some of those might be. So it's going to be a riveting discussion. Hopefully you guys will join us tomorrow. What time is it and where is it going to be?
I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern time because we got to be late. And I think it's on Dear Woke Christian's channel. I think he's hosting.
Okay, well, I know I'm definitely going to be late because I'm probably going to go live for a little while and then pop on over there. What I'll do is I'll probably usher everybody over to Jason's channel. So,
all right, so y'all come to April's channel first and then follow her over to Dear Woke Christian's channel.
That's what we're going to do. So it was great chopping it up with you. And I'll talk to you next time.
Yeah.
All right. All right. How do I get you off of here?
I'm leaving.
Oh, okay. Bye. How I make that go away? I don't know. But let's do this. Camera. There we go. Oh, Father. Sorry, y'all. Anyway, I appreciate y'all rocking with me tonight. This has been a long stream. I know there always are. I love you guys with the love of the Lord. In terms of what's coming up on the horizon, what do I have coming up? I'm trying to think. Tomorrow I'll probably live stream probably at 8 o'clock instead of 8:30 or 8:15 instead of 8:30 to buy me a little bit more time to kind of present what I want to present to you. I'm so grateful for you guys who have subscribed and who watch my videos. As much as I like to live stream, you guys, I am going to have to figure out a way. I can't crank out as much content as I would like if I am trying to do pre-records and live streams. So in order for me to crank up my pre-recorded schedule, I'm probably going to have to decrease my live streams, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure out what's the best way to address that challenge. But my travel schedule is about to pick up. So live streaming is just not going to be as feasible as a lot of the pre-recorded content. But we're going to try it out. We're going to see. Next week, I'm going to have a guest on next Wednesday. I am also, I knew it was something I'm going to tell you guys about. Let me pull this in really quick. Super excited. Coming up in July, where is my Florida crew? If you are in Tampa, Orlando, or any of the surrounding areas in Florida, I am coming down where you are, and I am excited to see you. I will be at, how do we get this in there? Let me see. There we go. July 13th, I will be in Tampa, Florida for the Blexic Liberation Show. And I'm super excited for that collaboration. I've kind of been Blexic adjacent for a really long time. I was a part of Blexic organizationally very, very early on, and then stepped away because at the time I was running my business. And then, as time progresses, you get new leadership and new initiatives. And I don't know if you guys know, but Blexic is now under the Turning Point USA umbrella. And I absolutely love Turning Point as an organization. I don't know how you might feel about Turning Point, but I attribute much of the work in terms of pushing Donald Trump over the finish line. I attribute it to what organizations like Turning Point did. They are a powerhouse for sure in terms of changing the mindset of the young people to kind of understand liberation and freedom and not government dependence and socialism and communism. So July 13th, the Liberation Show is super cool because there are going to be several speakers. Let me just kind of tell you who else is going to be there with me. We have, here we go. Brandon Tatum, who is the original founder of Blexic, he's going to be in the house. Pierre Wilson, who's currently the director of Blexic. Pastor, my big brother, actually he's my big little brother because I'm older than him. John Amachuku is going to be in the house. John is a very prolific and profound speaker. If you've never heard him live and in living color, he is incredibly amazing. Vince Everett Ellison, the big homie, who is part of the Dream Team, who I have the pleasure of managing his brand and his platform. He is also going to be there speaking. And Peyton Jackson, y'all, I am so excited to meet this woman. I don't know her, but I have seen her in TikTok passing in terms of her boldness and ability to confront these liberal leftists and their freak nastiness and just jacked up worldviews. I actually like what I've seen from her so far. And then just so many others. I've met Gothics before. I'm looking forward to hugging her neck again. But they're going to be live music and performances. And you can grab your tickets over at blexic.com, I think, /events. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link to the event for you to register. Y'all, it's like $3 to come. Like, that's nothing, okay? You can get your whole family in there. If it's like 6 of y'all, right, for $18 with some change to spare. So if you're anywhere near Tampa, even if you're just a couple of hours away, y'all come on down July 13th. Y'all got plenty of time to prepare and plan. I will be there. I'm looking forward to seeing so many of you coming out and supporting. And it's going to be a really dope event. So if you want more information, if you go to my Instagram, there's a link in a bio. My link in the bio will take you there. But after this live stream ends, I will actually go ahead and drop the link in the description box below. Last thing. Oh, by the way, if I don't go live tomorrow, y'all, it's because, listen, the reason why my hair looks so flat and it looked like it's like glued down like cement, because it is, y'all. I need my hair done, okay? Like, I can't comb it. I can't comb it. I can't call it. I can't do nothing to it other than it just exists like this. So at 11:30 tomorrow, I will be in the chair, okay, getting my deliverance, because deliverance is not for your girl. I can't turn around. Listen, it's that hurt. It's rough. It's rough in these kitchen streets, okay. But in the roots here, not so much. But honey, listen. If I get out in time, I will go live. I just realized that before I was talking about going live tonight. I got to get the wig split. Okay, it's got to happen. So I will see you guys. Oh, that's right. It is Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully you guys are barbecuing and celebrating our heroes who have served in whatever branch of the government. Memorial Day is the time that we take to remember those who lost their life in the line of duty in the armed forces. And then Veterans Day celebrates the ones who are still alive. Right. That's the difference. Veterans Day is different than Memorial Day. So let's just not grill and stuff our faces, even though I can't stuff my face. I got to figure out what I'm going to eat. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'll have some smoothies and some juice, but I really do want to choose something substantive that's familiar to me. Like I'll probably do a burger without the bun, or I may make myself some spinach dip, and instead of eating it with chips, I might do celery sticks. I don't know. I'm trying. Okay, give me some grace. Anyway, that's all that I have for you guys tonight. Until next time, you guys, I love you with the love of the Lord. Grace and peace.